Hello, people of no color and no culture. I'm on a website called infinitycoins.com, and we are looking at a hard times token. Well, why am I bringing this up? So I started metal detecting in the spring, and every single thing that I pull out of the ground is a piece of history, and we all know that there's a hidden history. You know what's really weird is that the previous generations really didn't talk much about history, especially the greatest generation. They've lived through the biggest changes in history. And being a Gen Xer, I've lived through a lot of changes, but not as many as the greatest generation. So anyway, let's talk about this coin and this piece of hidden history. May not be like super duper deep hidden, but somewhat hidden. So this is an 1837 Hard Times token, and let me tell you what they have to say here. This was produced as a satirical and privately produced coin from the time of the United States financial crisis of 1837. I never knew there was a financial crisis in 1837, but it makes sense to me because what does the United States do when they hit a financial crisis? They create a war to dig themselves out. Like, we had World War I, then we had World War II. So then the Civil War coming right after a financial crisis in 1837. This is an ideological token without a head. The executive experiment was Van Buren's sub-treasury idea using a fiscal agent. I don't know who Van Buren was. I think he was some sort of political candidate. The tortoise carrying the safe meant the Democrats could never get the bill through Congress. What year was there a Democrat Party? That's another question that I don't know. I should have been prepared before I read this article, but I'm not. On the reverse is a line from Van Buren's inaugural speech, in which he said, "I follow in the steps of my illustrious predecessor." Contemporary cartoons showed Van Buren behind a jackass stepping on its hoofprints. The period between 1832 and 1844 was a turning point in the history of the United States and centered around the controversy over whether public funds should be kept in a privately controlled institution. President Andrew Jackson began the controversy by vetoing a bill in 1832 to continue the existence of the Private Bank of the United States. And it passed its charter expiration in 1836. The economic depression began in 1837 when even state banks proved to be unworthy places to keep the country's funds. All right, so how did we have the freaking Great Depression if we already had this depression back in the 1800s? That was almost 100 years. So we're going to have a Great Depression about every 100 years in the United States. It is 2022, and the last Great Depression started, or technically, or whatever, started in 1929. A whole category of collecting centers around the broken banknotes of this period. Emotions ran high, and as the economy worsened, the population hoarded gold and silver. Currently what we have going on here in the United States. Small transactions became difficult. The government hadn't the capacity to supply copper coins to substitute for the hoarded money. Hundreds of large-sized tokens began to appear to take the place of small silver coins. These tokens had advertising messages or political statements as their themes. This is a hard times token known as Jackass Running, and is one of the first instances of the symbol of the Democratic Party of Andrew Jackson. Well, they never called it the Democratic Party until recently. I don't know why the Democrats call themselves Democratic, like the Democratic People's Republic of whatever, United States. The issuer is critical of the policy of eliminating the Bank of the United States. "I follow the illustrious steps of my predecessor," the obverse legend says, "an 1837 executive experiment and above fiscal agent," referring to the tortoise. On the tortoise's back is a treasure chest representing the funds of the United States, and on the chest is sub-treasury, which refers to the independent sub-treasury system that the government established. The tortoise likely represented what the critics thought the government would make out of the economy: slow. The critics were nostalgic for the high-flying boom that was fueled before 1832 by worthless paper money and overextended credit. Interesting. The hundreds of tokens produced became a communication and propaganda device, stimulating discussion about topics such as suffrage and slavery. Did it? Really, did it? That part I don't believe. The tokens might have contributed to the change from voting for president by state legislators to the present system of direct vote. The tokens were successful communicators and became the forerunners of campaign buttons and pins. How about that? So much that I don't know. You guys might have already known it, but I just didn't know it. And topics about suffrage and slavery. Were people talking about suffrage and slavery in 1832? I mean, you have to walk down, or you have to walk outside. There's no running water, no indoor plumbing. And, you have to go to the water pump and pump out your water, or you got to go down to the river or whatever to get your water and carry it back in a bucket. And then you have to heat up your water and pour it in a big tub to take a bath, and you took your bath on Saturday nights. Right. So I'm confused on this whole suffrage and slavery thing. I think that just whoever wrote this is just put their modern propaganda twist on it. All right, white people, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your thoughts below.